I'm Sam Sutherland. I'm from Work 180 and I'm the moderator for today's discussion. I also host Work 180's podcast. So if you're looking for some isolation entertainment, go and check out Equality Talks on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And I'd like to introduce you to the two people we're talking to today. So Gemma Lloyd. Gemma is CEO and co-founder of Work 180. After she experienced discrimination at work in the tech industry, she really wanted to flip the job-seeking model on its head, give power back to job seekers, and is in the process of changing the world. So hi, Gemma. Nice to see you today. And then our other guest today is Valeria Ignatieva, who is raising a son with special needs as a single mum. And so she knows firsthand how important flexibility and support from your employer are to having a successful career and managing a family. As the other CEO and co-founder of Work 180, she is so passionate about the success of every single candidate that gets roles with our endorsed employers. So welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Sam.
So today we're going to be talking about working remotely and how to set yourself up for success with that. So Gemma, I thought first of all, could you kind of set the scene, explain how Work 180 operates, and so why you and Valeria are specialists in working remotely and supporting your team with that, and essentially why should people listen to you about this?
Sure thing. So Work 180, we've been around for over 5 years now, and we are and always have been 100% remote. So Work 180, since its inception 5 years ago, has always worked from home, and pre-COVID, pretty much wherever suited us best, whether that be from cafes or co-working spaces. And we employ over 40 people, and that's on a global scale. So predominantly, most of those people are spread across Australia, but also in the UK and the US. So I think it's fair to say that we're quite experienced in this domain.
Yeah, indeed. So Valeria, can you talk a little bit about what you think the biggest positives are being a remote worker?
Sure. So hi, everyone. Great to have you here on our first virtual event of this kind. For me personally, the benefits of, being a single parent, as you mentioned, I have a child with special needs, has been invaluable. And I literally couldn't have gone to continue my career and continue working if it wasn't for remote and flexible working. So I've actually been working like this for about 13 years now. And it enabled me to be there for my son, to continue with his therapy at home and also attend hospital appointments. In addition to that, as he got older, I'm seeing so many benefits around being productive, around being able to do the things that are really important to me, such as when we're allowed out, that is sports, and continuing pursuing my fitness goals, and also just things that I want to accomplish. Because once you take out the travel time, there is so much more time that you can utilize to do the things that really matter to you. So I think, both on a personal level around being there for my son is really important to me, and on a productivity level, as Gemma mentioned, we started this company, just the two of us working remotely, and everyone who's joined us has been onboarded remotely as well. And we're now working through the pandemic remotely. So I think the benefits are endless, and happy to, answer specific questions as well from anyone towards the end.
Yeah, one of the things you mentioned there was taking out travel time. And I think that's a massive one for everybody who's transitioning from a full-time role in an office to a full-time role working from home. They often are getting 2.5 hours of their day back. And also if you take into account like putting on makeup and blow drying your hair and stuff, which you don't necessarily do if you're not going out into public, you can actually get quite a lot of time back right now.
100%. Yeah, I just think of even things like, we're just discussing our hair and what's going to happen to it if we don't have the hairdressers appointments. And, my nails are going to be healthy, my hair's going to be healthy. So there's many personal benefits as well to just working from home, and I guess being on lockdown as well. I'm trying to look at the positives here.
Yeah. And Gemma, on the flip side, what do you think some of the challenges are with working from home and figuring out how to manage yourself and manage your workspace and the balance of shutting off and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So the first challenge, I guess, is that definition between home and work when you're always at home. And it can go both ways. So it can be both your work life creeping into your personal, so not switching off at certain times, and also then on the flip side, personal creeping into work. And so Defined boundaries are really important. And also I mean, for me, it's work creeping into home life, which is the challenge. And so what I've actually done is things like at 7 o'clock every night, that's the time that my husband and I cook dinner together. And for one of our tech leads, he goes for a walk at 6 o'clock every day. So if you can get a bit of a routine set up, that's really important. The other thing as well is communication with family. So it's when you're sitting in the house, or whether it be the same room or a different room, it's very, very easy for your family to come in and start talking to you normally how they would, when you're usually at home. And so I think up front, really open, honest and healthy communication around, usually I'd be doing this in an office. And so when I'm at home in my workspace, I need this to be my workspace, because otherwise I won't get done the things that I need to get done to be successful at work. Then there's on the flip side of that, the other challenges around feelings of isolation. Work 180, we've, over the years, we've definitely hired people that have struggled more than others with the adjustment to working from home if they haven't done it before. And so we've become really, really good at making sure that we have things in place to overcome feelings of isolation. The first thing I'd suggest for those is how are you communicating within teams and across teams? So Zoom, Google Hangouts, anything with a video cam should always take priority over a phone call. It takes 2 seconds to jump on, and that face-to-face time is really important. The second is around meetings. And so having defined meetings every day, or however you want to structure it, and define outcomes for those meetings, but having a really good cadence. So it's not, because it's not like you can just walk up to somebody's desk and ask them a quick question. So we have stand-ups every morning within our sales team, within our marketing team, within our customer success teams. That really helps. And I think keeping the same etiquette as you would in person as you do online is really important. So for instance, when you're in person, you would never just walk up to someone and say, hey, where's this document, for instance. But so online, when you're on, whether it's Slack, start it off with, hey, how you going? Those sorts of things that are really important. And likewise on a Zoom, it's so easy to just jump straight into business, but spend 1 or 2 minutes talking about something a bit personal first.
We've talked before about developing a working rhythm when you're working from home. And it really links to that cross between work and home, and how do you start and how do you end and where do you work and how do you make sure that you're productive in the time that you're working and then switch off properly. And can you talk, V, a bit about how you set your rhythm for your work day and the other kind of rhythms that you've seen work well for people when they start working fully remotely?
Sure. So I think the challenge that, Gemma and I both struggle with is that we're so passionate about what we do that setting a rhythm comes really easily. And it's similar to asking people, how would you set a rhythm to binge on your favorite Netflix show or eat ice cream? It's not hard. You just get into it, right? So for us, I think when I talk about myself, I've realized very quickly that, yes, I'm super passionate about it, but it does not mean that I can be productive for, 12 hours a day. So how do I keep that energy level consistent throughout the day? How do I sleep well? How do I make sure that I am, really effective when I do spend my time at work? So for me, developing a routine, I guess, that suits your personal circumstances is really important. So I do fasting, so I don't eat breakfast in the morning. So I kind of get into work, and then I might have some time out around 10:30 where I will have a meal with my son. So that's kind of similar to Gemma's comment earlier around setting aside time to do things together with your family. That's really important to me. So I actually block time out in my diary so that I know. Otherwise, I used to just accept any meeting that would get popped into my diary, and people don't realize what you've got on. So it's really important to take control of your diary, to pop in. I have a section that says, no meetings, please. And obviously if people need to put a meeting there, that's is the only time that suits them, they might ping me on Slack and ask me if that's okay, and that's fine. But that also gives me the opportunity to know that I will get to have a break, and I'll be, I won't be sitting at my desk for 4 hours at a time, and I'll also spend quality time with my son. And sorry, Sam, just to go back to your earlier point around boundaries, if I could offer one bit of advice for slightly older children, is that something I've found works really well is communicating what I call feeding times at the zoo, because if I don't, he'll just raid the cupboard. And, so I've had to say, this is when we're going to eat. I need you to, chop some mushrooms. I want you to start chopping at this time, because then, that kind of plans his day a bit more as well, and communicates when we'll be able to, sit down and have food together, and also means that I can't be interrupted in between and so on. So that's been working really well. Some other techniques that have worked well when I'm struggling to focus because there's so many things coming at me at once and everything is just as important and just as urgent, is to identify what you're going to work on and use the Pomodoro Technique. So if you wanted to have a further look into that, we might put that in the notes as well. It's called Pomodoro Technique, which essentially is just as simple as setting the timer for 25 minutes and making sure that you will focus on the task that you set yourself for that time, and you won't jump on Twitter or Facebook or whatever else that may distract you. And that could be really tricky, and you physically have to remind yourself, don't, that I know that's flashy and exciting, but just don't go back to what you were doing. And it also helps make a start on difficult things. So say you're doing something for the very first time, or you're not sure how to even begin working on this particular project, just having that time then, just starting it and knowing that you can have a break in 25 minutes has been really helpful. And I know a lot of my team have been using that technique really efficiently, so that works really well. And the other thing I've learned recently, again, kind of coming back to accepting meetings at whenever, wherever, especially when you're at home all day, is being really mindful that if you are in a global role, so for example, I work across the UK and the US a lot now that we've just launched in the US. So, if I'm having late UK meetings, I will block out my diary the next morning so that people don't schedule US meetings, because otherwise, you could be up till midnight and then have a first call with the US at 5 a.m. and that is not a good use of your time at all, but that could happen if you don't take control of your diaries.
I really love the Pomodoro technique, and so we will share something about that for everybody. An interesting point about it is that you actually, it is more effective if you are seeing the countdown. I read this article about the psychology of seeing the time counting down better than just setting an alarm on your phone. And I actually have this lock box that I put my phone in. So I spin the dial to set a time, press the button, and then it locks and you can't open the box for that amount of time.
It's next level, Sam.
Well, I find it pretty helpful. If I have to write, especially when I'm writing a piece, I really need to focus on it. I can't take phone calls and I just need to be in the piece. So put it in there for an hour or two and then no distractions. I'm good.
Yeah, just on that as well, I did this a long time ago, but I actually disabled all notifications on my phone except for text messages, because otherwise it was just so annoying for me to just keep hearing, and stressful as well. Every time you hear a ping, you feel like you need to react. So my team also know that if they need to get hold of me urgently, they will call me, and that really eases the anxiety of, am I, missing out on something important? And also just, I can feel how much more productive I am when I'm not bouncing around. And there's lots of research out there that says it takes quite a while to get back on task if you consistently are interrupted.
Now, if I can ask each of you to offer one tip to somebody who's just started working from home through all this and they want to make it as successful as possible, what's the one tip that you would offer? V, we'll start with you.
I think that despite, reading millions of articles around what works for other people, you really do need to test what works for you and be really kind and patient with yourself, because like Gemma and Sam just mentioned, this is a very, very stressful time. So you can't expect to snap into the most productive person ever overnight, given that there are so many extra things on your plate right now mentally. So I think, be kind to yourself, try different things. I remember at one stage I read articles that the most successful people have this routine when they wake up that includes anywhere between 4 to 7 different things. None of them have to do with work, and it's like yoga, meditating, doing something like reading a book. And I thought, I want to be really successful, I'm going to do this, and realized that it was just so hard to accomplish all of that. But also I didn't feel right kind of jumping straight into work either, or, you know, waking up and looking at my phone. So I kind of developed things that I wanted to stick to at the start of the year. And one of it was don't jump on your phone immediately. And that's really hard to do, especially now. You know, you really want to check Twitter. Did something else happen overnight? Did emails and all that kind of stuff. For me, I found kind of a compromise is I've got over 100 indoor plants. So what worked really nice for me is sometimes I'll wake up and I might just go and spend, you know, 10 minutes just kind of, I don't know, watering the plants or doing something really, really calming, and then get into work. So that was nice. And then I, you know, kind of sometimes I don't want to do that. I want to get into work straight away because that's what makes me feel happy at that point in time. So I think it's important to, yeah, just be really patient with yourself. Try different things. Some may work, some may not work. And maybe, you know, I wrote down 10 things that I knew worked really well, and that helped me stay on focus, because sometimes, you know, that was done at the beginning of the year when I had more time to consider this during the Christmas break. And having that list helps me when I get a little bit frazzled and try and do, you know, everything at once, and just referring back to that list and reminding myself that those are the things that make me feel good, make me feel productive. So that's worked really well.
Gemma, what would you offer as one tip to somebody who's just now working from home to make it successful?
I think being forthcoming with feedback, and whether that be, you know, around your own home situation, or whether that be around how your work is currently setting up the workplace to work remotely. You know, I think that we've got to keep in mind that this is quite new for a lot of people, and we're kind of all in this together at the moment. So the more forthcoming that you can be with, this isn't working, can we do it in this way, or this is my issue at the moment. You know, there's certainly a lot of people that can't attend, you know, company or team meetings in the same way because they've got a 2-year-old, 4-year-old crawling over their laps, and it's really, really difficult. So I think speak to your managers and speak to your teams, see what can work within the new environment, but that open communication and feedback is really important.
Valeria, what would you suggest? So Gemma suggested the idea of really over communicating and giving lots of project updates and stuff, which I think is a great idea, and having face-to-face meetings to make sure communication is really clear. And Valeria, if you were going to offer some ideas about how to manage up and manage that relationship with your manager, what would you suggest to people?
Yeah, so those two things are definitely top of my list as well. And perhaps you might like to instigate a quick, 15-minute stand-up every day or every second day with your manager so that you can communicate all those things. And you can also, for managers that are really perhaps inexperienced in flexible working, remote working, or new to this, or maybe they've had a bad experience in the past with, like you said earlier, Sam, somebody at the beach is actually more of a performance issue, but some people have this one experience in their lifetime with somebody who worked flexibly and didn't perform, and that kind of mars it for everybody else. So perhaps you could counter that by having those quick stand-ups and saying, this is what I'm working on today, does that align with your priorities? And be really crystal clear. And that is really nice for a manager to actually, having somebody so proactive to communicate. And then the biggest thing for me is, if you communicate a deadline and for some reason you can't deliver to that deadline, just let somebody know and say, okay, I know that I said I'll get this done by Tuesday. I've had the following, issues, whatever that may be. Do you mind if I do it by Wednesday or Thursday, or would you like me to see if somebody else can help? And that is, it sounds so simple, but I think a lot of people might kind of, either forget to communicate or think that it's okay, or I'll try and, smash it out by Tuesday. But like Gemma said, feedback and communication is so important that it's okay if you, can't do that, but just let somebody know. Let your manager know. And also asking for help if you get stuck. I think the feedback that I've had, so I talk to a lot of our new starters a week or two in after they've, transitioned from working 100% in an office to working remotely. And often they say, oh, I'm really surprised at how friendly and helpful everyone is on Slack, because I was a bit worried about asking for help because, normally in an office, the natural behavior is to get up and ask someone. And you might start working remotely and feel a bit, strange about asking people for help online or sending emails or calling. But please do that, because I don't think, if anyone asks you for help, you're never going to look at them and go, oh, that's so annoying, and why are you asking me for help? So I think if you think of being productive for, the entire business being productive, you asking for help would actually save the business time, because you're not spending 3 hours, worrying about where to find things, or perhaps working on a solution that might not be as effective. So, reach out, over communicate, as Gemma said. I think that can't be stressed enough in this situation.
I also think, this period of time, if you really are successful at working remotely and demonstrating that initiative and forethought and stuff, well, you're in a pretty good negotiating position when everything goes back to normal to be able to get more flexibility in your work, because you've demonstrated, along with everyone else, that it can be done, and that you're really you take the initiative and think about things and go with solutions and are proactive and stuff. So it's actually like an opportunity from that perspective, I think.
It is an exceptional opportunity, because when you think about, we've had an increase of about 300% of women looking for remote jobs and work from home jobs. That is what they've always looked for. Yeah. But now we all have to be at home and so on. So this is a great opportunity for companies, because now that everyone's going to experience this, people, candidates can be even choosier in the future, because we know that this can be done.
Yeah.
And companies that continue to offer this are the ones that are going to win the talent.
So we've talked a little bit about the line between home life and work life and putting boundaries in place. But Gemma, Valeria has often commented on the fact that you have the strongest work ethic of anyone that she knows, and that you're hugely productive. And so I wanted to ask how you stay motivated and productive when you're working from home, and how would you suggest to somebody who's working remotely now how they manage themselves to remain productive?
I think when I am tired, and it is hard, and sometimes because we're global, the days can get quite long. I think, and I'm struggling if I struggle to get motivation, for example, it's just really thinking about the outcome and the bigger picture that drives me to really get it done. It's kind of taking yourself out of the little bits and pieces that you have to think of, and think, well, when I do this, what is it really going to achieve? What's the impact on my role, on my team, on the business? And I think having a sense of a bigger picture and a bigger purpose can help anyone with productivity or motivation. If you are lacking in productivity or you're lacking on motivation, I think you've kind of got to go, well, this isn't really, you're one piece of a much larger puzzle. How is that impacting your teammates? We're in a time where, it's economically challenging. So everybody really needs to be pulling their weight here so we can all get through this together. And that's kind of what I would recommend if you're feeling unmotivated.
Valeria, can you offer some suggestions for someone who's not used to working remotely on how they stay connected to their colleagues? So I think it can be very easy to fall into the trap of just emailing everybody all the time and not feeling like you have any connection with people during the day.
Yeah, definitely. I think I hope that everybody on this call has some sort of internal comms channel, whether it's Microsoft Teams or Slack or Yammer. And the beauty of those channels is that you can start things yourself as well. So the channels that Gemma touched on earlier, we didn't put them in place. I don't have a pet. I didn't start the plants channel either, even though I'm probably got the most plants in the company. So people start those. They have book clubs. They invite others. I know a couple of teams, and now we'll have a company-wide as well, do Friday virtual drinks. I heard there's going to be karaoke. There's just all these ideas that people do. We also use Donut, which is a plugin for Slack that actually pairs you with a colleague that is, could be anyone. And it's so important to build those relationships, not just within your teams, but within the whole of the company. So I've seen people have chats that would normally not even have anything to do with each other in the work sense. So we had somebody from the UK chat to somebody on the tech team, somebody from finance chat to somebody in marketing. And on those donut calls, there is strict rules to not talk about work. Obviously, people might want to chat about that, but there's all sorts of questions. And Sam, I think you can share your own example as well of what you use for that.
Yeah.
So take the opportunity, what has happened to your virtual networking, or sorry, your actual women's networking groups now that we're all virtual? Are they still continuing to have meetings? Do they, have they created a bit of a, I guess, sense of purpose that we all need to do right now that could perhaps rally to help somebody external to your company. So to give you an idea of what I mean is, a number of our team is very, very passionate about helping other women. Well, we all are obviously, but there's some that have gone to post on social media to say, you know, if you need any help with your resume or your LinkedIn profile, please contact me. We're taking that a step further, and they're organizing similar, webinars such as this. And, you know, what you can actually do in Zoom is also break into groups and have peer support. So, you know, you might want to host something with your colleagues to help people external to the company that might be made redundant, or, you know, you might have some kind of skill set that you can share with the rest of the world. And, you know, that's one way to do something together, because we all know that we feel much better when we help others. But in terms of staying in touch as well, you know, make sure that you do create those avenues to chat through things that are not just, you know, emails about work and so on. We have some members that, I think, what did they do together on a Zoom call? They went in the garden and showed each other around, and one of them planted some succulents or something like that. So, you know, that stuff you wouldn't even do if you worked in an office. And I can tell you now that I know more things about my colleagues working remotely than I've ever known working with people in a physical office.
In this time as well, everybody is wanting more connection. You know, we're all feeling pretty isolated. And so if you feel isolated, the chances are so do your colleagues. And so reaching out to them will almost certainly have a very positive result, because they'll want to feel connected. You want to feel connected. It'll improve your relationship with them. Like, I think it's just all positives at the moment from trying to reach out and connect with people.
The other thing, Sam, I wanted to mention was we use what's called Nuclino, which is like an internal wiki. And we've actually started a list of different initiatives relating to the fact that we're not only working remotely, but also in lockdown. So people have put down their favorite exercise routines that are free apps that you can do at home. Some people are sharing what they're doing in terms of exercise. Some people have put down tips for working with children. Some people have put down, different articles for managing anxiety and things like that. So create, any one of us on the call can start something and share with their colleagues tomorrow. So, and that can build to going beyond COVID-19 and actually, creating that space for you to collaborate and to share different ideas.
So I wanted to ask one more question, and then we'll open up to the floor to see if anybody on the call has questions. So Valeria made the comment earlier about how, using the Pomodoro Technique can help mean that you're not just sitting at your desk for 4 hours at a time. And so, Gemma, I wanted to ask this question to you. How do you make sure that, especially because you're so passionate and can work all the time, how do you make sure that you do move? Because when you work at home, you can't wake up and just roll straight to your desk. Like, I think the other day I did 260 steps in a whole day. So how do you manage that when, I know there's additional limitations at the moment, but how do you make sure that you're not just at your desk for 12 hours and moving and seeing the world?
Well, for me, it's my son. I have a 10-month-old. He turned 10 months yesterday. And so when I need to stop during the day at intervals to go and see him. Like, there's no way I could go. And that's the other benefit of remote working. I don't have to go into an office. So I have my son on tap, for lack of a better term, when I need cuddles. And which is great. So that's one thing that gets me out and about. But also there's there's lots of different things. There's like 7-minute workout app, which is or it's on YouTube. It's all from home, things you can do. You don't need any special equipment. But obviously exercise and getting out and going for a quick walking meetings. That's something that I do a couple of times a day as well. It's about having a meeting on the phone. If somebody doesn't need to present anything to you, say, do you mind if I do this as a walking meeting? And it might incentivize that other person to do the same.
I'd really like to open up to see if anybody on the call has a question. So if you do, you can, if you hover over the screen, then the chat box will show up down the bottom and you can type a question in there. Or you could put your hand up and we can unmute you and you can ask your question directly to Valeria and Gemma. Does anybody feel brave enough to ask a question or have something that you heard that you want to ask a follow-up question on? Oh, there's one. Do you have time cards or an equivalent? So are you meaning sort of like clock in, clock out time cards? That's how I'm going to answer that. Yeah, okay, clock in. So we don't, but I'll let you guys answer that.
No, it's a great question, because actually I was asked by the AFR this question a couple of weeks ago around the idea of Bundy clocks for work, but the reason behind that initiative at that time was because there was some stuff around employers not doing the right thing. But for Work 180 specifically, we trust our people and we look at outcomes, and so we don't look at time clocks or anything like that. It's really about what are the performance KPIs, and being really, really clear on what that means and measures of success, and then letting your teams know to over communicate if they're struggling, then because if they're only working 3 days a week and you're outcomes based, but something else is happening that's causing them to not be able to get work done, then that communication and that trust and that empathy is really, really important. So I don't personally believe in time clocks, but because we do trust people to do the right thing.
So we have another question, which is, do you recommend any tools or apps to help monitor project management whilst remote working?
We use Trello quite a lot. That helps for project management, and we do. I mean, we're quite well set up, I think, with working remotely. We've got Slack for our everyday communication, Trello for project management. We use Google Drive, which allows collaboration on the same document at the same time. We've got Zoom for our web conferencing, HubSpot as our CRM, which is a great CRM, and anything else I'm missing, V?
Well, actually, just to show how good remote working is, I've just pinged our CEO, Katie, to see what her recommendations would be. And I wonder if she'll say anything in addition to Gemma's, but I'll let you know because she's typing me a message right now. So maybe we'll move on to the next question and come back to that one, if that's okay.
Okay.
Oh, she's saying Jira, sorry, which I was going to say.
Oh, Jira, of course, yeah.
So she says, Jira is great for more technical projects. Trello is great for high-level project management. You can create a Trello board for your entire team, lay out each project milestone, and create and assign cards to them. Then you go through Trello board and your project huddles, stand-ups. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you, Katie.
And also, can I just point out, this is such a great example of how remote working works with Work 180. So although we're not there, we're actually in live conversation with people all the time. And I think Slack helps that because it's a live thing. So Valeria just Slacks Katie, who then just Slack back, and it's like having a conversation. And in fact, often, instead of messaging people on Slack, I'll video call them on Slack. So we'll start a message and then I'll just call them. We'll have a quick chat. And so you actually are really connected. You don't.
And you couldn't do that in an office. You wouldn't jump up. I wouldn't jump up now, run over to Katie's desk, interrupt her, and then, yeah. So I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so we have another question, which is, do you have any tips to support managers who in turn need to support their teams? So can I ask, do you mean support your manager from within the team, or you're managing managers? I'm not quite sure. Well, we'll see if, Susie, you've just been unmuted, so you might be able to ask your question.
Hi. Hello. My question is both because I'm a HR team member who needs to make sure that our managers are supported, and then to give them some tips to help support their teams.
My, I guess, quick takeaway for that, without delving too much detail, because we are running a webinar on that, is we spoke to our leadership team the other day around the need to be extra vigilant in really keeping an eye on your teams in terms of, you might have a team meeting on video, and it's really hard to tell in that meeting whether somebody is not okay. And even if you ask everyone, are you okay? Some people might not be comfortable sharing in front of the group. So if you see anybody who's looking, who's acting a little bit different or quieter than usual, and I think you should all know your teams well enough to pick up on that, then pick up the phone afterwards, give them a call. Maybe don't do it on video because it's a bit less, sensitive in terms of they might not feel comfortable speaking face to face, and then just say to them, how is your parents going, for example, because it could be that they're affected by COVID-19 right now, and it's a bit of a deeper question than just saying, are you okay? Because a lot of people want to say, yep, I'm fine, because again, you're trying to maintain that professionalism, everything's fine, I don't want to, I'm scared of losing my job, so I don't want to look shaky at all. So going beyond that and just checking in around the circumstances, building on that relationship that you would have had previously, having the face-to-face time is really, really important. And just things change on the daily basis. So if they were okay yesterday, they might have suddenly found themselves in a very vulnerable situation the next day. So you really need to keep an eye out, but we'll definitely delve in that more in the next webinar. I hope that helps for now.
I want to say thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time today to join us on this webinar and for your participation and asking questions and being here on the call with us. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.